Welcome to the Jones Zone, a podcast by Darryl and JJ Jones.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jones Zone. Today, our topic is going to be protect your real estate investment from fraud and litigation. My guest is Walt Tamulinas. Walt has been in the business forever. I've been in the business forever, and he's been in the business longer than I have. Walt, when did you start, by the way?
1976, October.
1776?
It's been so long, I almost forgot how long it's been. Yeah, I was 10 when I started. Yes.
And you were the listing agent on the Louisiana Purchase, right?
We talked about that already.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Let me ask you this, Walt. Being the owner of an office, how to prevent fraud? How do we prevent fraud? I know that's probably a loaded question, so you can start for wherever you want to start.
Well, let me correct you. First of all, I'm an owner of a company.
Okay.
I'm owner of several companies. An office is a place where you keep furniture.
Okay. Fair enough.
Nobody goes there anymore. So you want to talk about fraud this morning, and with technology today, it's rampant. There are so many criminals on the internet that we can't keep up with them, and they're smarter than most firewalls that protect people. And so one of the big issues we have is wire fraud, and that's getting complicated more and more every day. People are trying to take the identity of an LLC, for example. So how do you prove who owns an LLC? So the title companies are having a nightmare with that. As a real estate company and as an escrow company, we are having trouble with wire fraud. And what that means is the client is contacted by a third party, the criminal, and they're given instructions to wire the money someplace other than the escrow account. And
they make it look like it's from an escrow officer. So
right, they're sophisticated enough. What happens is they hack someone's email, and the emails are there's so many emails in the transaction. Think about this: you got the mortgage guy, you got the loan processor, you got the escrow officer, you got the title people, you got the real estate agent. You got, who knows,
the principals,
people,
the buyer,
everybody involved in them. And most of the time, the hack comes from someone that's less sophisticated than a company that's protecting its back door. And so we have many, many measures that we put in place that we can't discuss because we don't want to give the bad guys, the opportunity to break in. And so we're not going to tell them the keys to the safe here. But I can tell you this, that's very, very easy for someone to be penetrated by the criminals on their personal email. Gmail, AOL, Yahoo, all those emails are wide open for these guys. And so they'll adopt the identity of an escrow officer or the real estate agent, and they'll say, hey, we're ready for the money, send the money, and here's the wire instructions. And it looks like the name of the escrow company. Maybe they'll change one letter or one number in the email. Well, it looks legit. And to complicate that even further now, AI can clone a voice. And so they can clone Darryl Jones' voice by just watching some of your blogs, for example, and get a couple paragraphs. And so they can create a message with your voice and leave a message on the client's phone and say, hey, we're ready for the funds. It's the close of escrow. So the criminal will watch the emails from the agent and or the clients or whoever's email they've penetrated, and they'll know exactly when these funds are due. And so they'll give false wire instructions that goes to London or goes to some other bank, foreign bank. And when that wire goes out, it's gone. It's almost impossible to get that wire to come back. So it's like instant. So the best safeguard I could recommend for a client is always verify who you're talking to. Number one thing is for protection, wire instructions never change. And so if you have a wire instruction from the escrow officer, nobody's going to, that never changes.
And let's evaluate that. So when you have those wiring instructions from an escrow officer, that's typically done in writing for starters. That's another thing. It's a sheet of paper that the buyer, in this case, let's say, would fill out, and then the real estate company would also go and talk about that. What do they help do? I mean, isn't the wiring instructions are done in writing and signed? Talk about that a little bit.
It's just a plain instruction. It comes from the escrow company. And it says, when we're ready, you'll send us your down payment and your closing costs. What happens in a transaction at the close is the loan funds go to the title company and they hold the big pile of money. And the buyer sends their down payment and their closing costs to the escrow company. And so that's the money they're looking for. Rarely can they get the money that's the loan funds. They can get those too. If they hack somebody else's system, they'll get the money that comes as the down payment. It could be $250,000. It could be $1 million. It could be $2 million. It could be multi-million dollars.
We had that one that luckily the bank caught it. We didn't even realize that the buyer had been contacted. They weren't our buyer. They were buying a listing of ours, and the crooks had contacted the buyer and told them to wire that it was around close to $1 million. And they instructed their bank, and their bank luckily caught it. So luckily the banks are a little bit involved in this, or a lot involved in this in terms of doing, triple checking. Fair to say?
Yeah. I think the clients get information fatigue during a transaction, and they've been through so much paperwork up to the time when they buy the house, and you go through thousands of pages of, reports, and it's unbelievable the stuff that we have to do to, get them to where they're in escrow. And the first comment from an escrow company is gigantic and in bold. It's right at the top. It said, "Never accept wire instructions from anybody but us in person." And so we hand these wire instructions to the client directly. We don't fax them. We don't email them. We hand them to them. And then we ask them before they send their wire to call escrow and speak with the escrow officer to verify that they've asked for the funds. And so typically the crook gets in there a couple days early, and the buyer says, "Oh, okay, I guess they're ready to close. Let's send our money in." And they're always anxious at the end. It's like, "Oh, good, we get to close a couple days early." So instead of doing what's right, they send their money to the bad guy. And so again, bold right at the top of the escrow instruction. Do not, take these instructions from anybody else. And so that's one of the ways we protect it. Another part of real estate fraud, though, is really important, too, is there's these fraudulent deed transfers. I know you see these television ads where they say, I could steal this guy's, the crook's saying I could steal their house really easy. They can. It's very, very easy. And it seems like most of the people that get hit have vacant homes. And so my suggestion to those of you that are going to have a home that's going to be vacant for a long time, have somebody watching it and taking care of it, and making sure, not for squatters, that doesn't happen much here, but make sure that, nobody is in that house. And so people will go in and record a deed and sell a house that's vacant. It's like somebody goes to Europe for 3 months and they leave their house. The criminal records a grant deed with the county recorder.
Well, hold on. Time out for a second. So recording a grant deed from the county recorders, they can't unilaterally do that. They have to have a team together. Don't they have to have a fraudulent notary?
Correct.
They have to have, an escrow, possibly title?
No escrow.
What would be required?
You can walk into the county recorder, and if you have a notarized grant deed, they cannot refuse it.
Wow.
If it's notarized. So sure, you could have a fake notary.
So that's really all one would need is a fake notary.
The county's not verifying, notaries. They say, there's a notary public. It's, the stamp is still, hasn't expired, so they accept it. So you get back from your trip from Europe and find out somebody's living in your house.
And it was sold while you were gone.
Right. Could be a month. Could happen that fast. So we had a few years ago, we had Chinese people buying properties here. And the reason why is they wanted their children to go to school in the United States. And so there was legislation that allowed a foreigner, especially Chinese, to come in and buy a business. If they bought a business, then they could get visas for their kids to go to school. And so they were buying real estate because that's a business. And they were leaving it vacant. And people found out there's a house sitting there for 6 months, nobody in it. They'd go in, some of them would inhabit it for a while, and they'd resell the property. And, we've actually had that happen to us.
And I think, they were just planting their money here. It's safer in the United States.
Real estate's the best investment you can do. You and I both know that. I mean, Everybody needs to know that. That's the best place. So it is the safest place. It's much safer than a bank for sure.
In order to check, let's say if someone's concerned about their house and that something nefarious is going on, they were gone for 2 months or whatever, what would one do?
Yeah, a couple of things. One would be this LifeLock type service where you're notified instantly if anything gets recorded against your house, a mechanic's lien or a deed or a lien. There's voluntary liens and there's involuntary liens. Voluntary lien is where you borrow money against the house. I'm going to get a line of credit. I'm going to get a loan. That's a voluntary lien. I'm agreeing to this lien. An involuntary lien is one where a taxing agency puts a lien on you, for example. or a mechanic's lien. If somebody worked on your house and you didn't pay them and they're going to slap a lien on it, that's an involuntary lien. And so, you can subscribe to that. But I think a professional property manager is probably the answer. Someone's going to be there on a regular basis, look at the property. And I could tell you a story about that. It was very interesting. We were tipped off by an appraiser. And the appraiser called our office and they said, I appraised this house just like 90 days ago. Why is this client selling it so fast? And I said, we're not handling the sale. I don't know. I'll check into it. So I started asking some questions. We started to do a little research. We found out that there was a fraudulent deed recorded against that house and somebody had sold it. And we happened to handle the escrow on that one. And so it's like, what the heck? It was, these people walked into our office with security cameras, looked right at the security camera. They gave identification, which showed that they were who they said they were. They matched the signature on the deed. They gave the fingerprints in our notary book, and they disappeared. So I think they were foreigners. And so it can be done, and now if a professional property manager was on the job, they would be inspecting the house every week or 2 weeks. And so, they would be
for rental.
Right. And it's very good to talk to the neighbors and say, hey, have you seen anybody coming around? And in this case, somebody had to be coming into the house, showing it, looking at it, you got to have buyers looking at the house. So, there's going to be activity there. So you have to have someone helping you kind of keep an eye on the property.
Someone had mentioned to me once, I forget who, that they actually put a lien on their property rather than own it free and clear, all cash. They put a lien on their property to themselves possibly, and maybe a nominal amount of money. And why they do that is because then they get notified if there's any sort of transfer. Is that ringing a bell?
That's good. Yeah, that's a great idea. A very good idea, Darryl. You could have a notice of contract. So it says there's something that has to do with this house. We use these documents in a land contract, and we're kind of getting off the topic here, but when you have a silent transfer where you're taking a loan subject to, again, this is probably another topic, but you record a notice of contract on the property. And then before the property gets transferred, the title company's got to contact you and say, how much are you owed? So that you got to get out of the way so that they could give clear title.
And I guess if that was in place, obviously it'd be very helpful because it's another step for the crooks to get past. But the crooks could even get past that with another.
That would be tough because the title company is really vigilant. The title company is really, really tough. We experience this every day. They want to dot their I's and cross their T's. So that's a great idea for protecting the equity in a property. Sure.
Well, I think that's probably the show.
Yeah,
do we have any good stories about fraud?
I just want to emphasize the fact that emails are very, very wide open, and so be cautious. It's good to buy virus protection. It's good to buy some firewalls on your personal home document, your personal home PC, and always know that wire instructions never change. And so when somebody's telling you these are different, send it to this bank instead of the bank we told you in the beginning, that's definitely fraud.
Red flag. So, well, Walt, I'll tell you, thank you so much. That has been incredibly helpful. In fact, I think this show may save people more money than any show I've ever done.
I hope it does.
So I appreciate that. So subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Hopefully you found that helpful. And again, thank you for watching another episode of the Jones Zone or listening to the Jones Zone. And please give us a like there as well. And any questions, please ask. Thanks again. Thank you, Walt.
Good to be with you.
Bye-bye now.